A major change is coming to the real estate industry. What does this mean for you? On today's episode, I'm going to be breaking down these changes and exactly what's going to be happening with your money in an upcoming real estate transaction. Hello, and welcome back to the Happy House Hacking Podcast, the podcast designed to help young people in California navigate the path to happy home ownership. I am your host, Owen Schwaegerle. I'm a realtor, investor, and happy house hacker. And on today's episode, we are going to share more information about the recent changes in the real estate industry and the commission structure. A lot of you may have heard over the last few months, there have been some lawsuits that the National Association of REALTORS has been involved in regards to the commission structure. And so what is happening and what does this mean for buyers and sellers? We're going to get into that today. And first, we want to share a little bit about the background, how commission structure that we have today came to be what it is. So the way things have been operating for the last several decades is when a seller goes to sign a listing agreement, they pay that agent a commission. And the way that the Association of Realtors had structured it was that the agent who received that commission would then split and share the commission with the agent who brings the buyer. What was the reason for this? The reason was buyers already have to save down payment, closing costs. They've got to save up for their loan origination, title escrow fees. There's a lot of fees that a buyer has to pay. And so what the Association of Realtors did was they created a structure where the buyer didn't have to pay the buyer's agent commission. It was compensated by the seller. So the buyer had less cash to close. And the goal of this was to help incentivize home ownership. Basically, they want more Americans to get into home ownership. The National Association of Realtors has long been an advocate for home ownership. Through their lobbying efforts, they actually have created low down payment assistance programs like the FHA 3.5% down. So the Association of Realtors has always been an advocate trying to make it easier to get buyers into home ownership. Now, what this did was, and this is the reason why they had a settlement come up, people felt like that wasn't very transparent because they were getting the services of a buyer's agent, and yet they weren't the one actually choosing what the buyer agent themselves got compensated. It had been pre-negotiated by the seller and the listing agent. And so in order to make things more transparent and to make things just easier for everyone to understand, they have decided to decouple the commissions. So there really are just two major changes that are taking place in the real estate industry since this lawsuit has come about. So number one, the decoupling of commissions. Instead of having the listing agent be able to offer a compensation to the buyer's agent through the multiple listing service, and that's the way we've marketed properties for years, we were sharing our commission with the agent who brought the buyer. And it made it work out great because we were incentivizing the sale force to get agents to show that property. And then the benefit was the buyer didn't have to pay that cost out of pocket. However, buyers have always been paying the commission. It has just been baked into the sales price. And so they paid it, but it was baked into the price rather than having to pay the cash at closing. So there's a few things that are going on here, and these are the changes that we want to share with you. So number one, the multiple listing service will no longer be able to advertise buyer's agent compensation. What does this mean for a buyer? So if you are a buyer, what it means is agents will need to get compensated somehow. And so there's one of two things that will happen. One would be the seller will still offer some form of concession, like a commission or a closing cost credit to the buyer to cover that buyer's agent commission. Or the buyer themselves may need to pay the agent that fee. So those are the two options that are going to become more prevalent. Either the seller gives some form of a closing cost credit to assist in covering it, the buyer pays it themselves. And recently, there's another change that happened recently where lenders would actually bundle in the commission for the buyer's agent into the loan. And that's pretty much the same way it's always been done. It's just been bundled into the price. Now it's just bundled into the loan. So that way the buyer doesn't have to come with as much cash to close. So that's what it means for a buyer. On the sales side, what it means is you have more options. And instead of paying a buyer's agent commission, you can choose. You could pay out 0, or you could pay out 2.5%, 2%. It's totally your choice. And it's much more negotiable now than it has ever been before, which, let's be clear, real estate commissions have always been negotiable. It actually says it in big, bold letters in our contracts that commissions are negotiable. So people are now just being made aware of what was already the case to begin with, that you could always negotiate commissions. Okay, so that's number one. Number one is decoupling of commissions. Number two, another significant change. If you want to see property, if you want to have an agent show you property, then you need to have what's called a buyer representation agreement signed. And so as a buyer, this is a form that just outlines what your working relationship is with your agent, and it goes over expectations, roles, obligations, and as a buyer's agent, that person is a fiduciary to you. So if you are shopping for homes, you'll want to have a buyer's agent represent you, so that way you know you have someone looking out for your financial best interest. And it's always been an industry best practice to have a buyer representation agreement signed. However, 90% of agents haven't used buyer representation agreements. They've just operated on a, hey, you called me, you want to see a house, I'm going to run out and show you that property. I don't know who you are. I haven't qualified you. I don't know if this is going to be a good working relationship or in your best interest. And yet that's how things have been done for years. And it's really been a disservice to our clients and to people in the industry. So the change here, that you need to have a buyer representation agreement signed before going out to look at property, is going to help clarify how the process works and what you can expect buying a home in today's market, because today's market is different than any other market in history. And that's exactly why you want to make sure you have a great agent on your team helping you navigate the process. So why do you need a buyer's agent? If you're buying a home for a house hack or your first time purchasing a home, why do you need an agent? Why can't you just go straight through the listing agent? Maybe you could save some on that commission. Now, you could do that. However, think about it this way. Let's say you were in a court of law and you were being sued by someone who wanted to come after you and sue you for damages. Would you want the attorney representing the other party also representing you? No, of course not. You would want your own representation, because that attorney representing you will have a fiduciary duty solely to you, to look out for you and your family and your financial best interest. It's the exact same thing in real estate. And that's why they created buyer's agency in the first place, to protect buyers, because it used to be buyer beware. Sellers signed a listing agreement and their sole responsibility and obligation was to get the seller the highest and best price possible. And so you had a lot of things happen where buyers didn't know something, or seller and agent kept information from the buyer. And so those are the reasons why they created buyer's agency, to protect the buyer. So if you're buying a home for the first time, highly recommend you do have a buyer consultation. Sit down with a qualified buyer's agent in your area. That way you can have that protection. Make sure you're in good hands. Okay. And if you're a seller, why would you consider offering compensation to a buyer? Now it's optional, right? You don't need to offer anything. You can offer a fat 0% to the buyer's agent. And on the front end, it sounds like, okay, cool. I might save some money because I don't have to pay out a commission. My net number is going to be higher. Now, here are some of the reasons why you would consider offering compensation to the buyer's agent through a closing cost concession. Empirical studies have shown that homes that offer less buyer's agent commission actually sit on the market longer and fail to sell more often. Think about it. People, they operate off of incentives. If they know that they can earn a higher income showing one house over another house, which house do you think they're going to show? And even though there are rules outlining that that is unethical behavior and that you cannot do that as an agent in our industry, people do it all the time. Otherwise, why would homes that offer less commission sit longer, sell less, and sell less for less money? So there is a financial benefit to the seller to offering a buyer's agent commission. That way you can get a quicker sale and get more money. Because in our market here on the Central Coast, we have 4,000 agents. And so if you want to incentivize the sales force, you want to offer them something to show your property and sell your property. It just makes it easier for you to incentivize people to come check it out. And that will cause it to go quicker. So those are some reasons why you would consider offering compensation, because the most motivated, most qualified buyers are already working with a buyer's agent. They've signed a consultation, a buyer rep agreement. They're ready to go now. And so if you want to get your home in front of those agents, you're going to be in a better position if you're offering those agents something to come and show and sell your property. Okay. Buying a home unrepresented. As a buyer, you can choose to buy it unrepresented. You don't need the listing agent to represent you. You could do it yourself. However, you have to ask yourself, is it worth the risk? Right now in California, there are so many new laws and requirements that come out every single year. For example, in the city of San Luis Obispo, there's a sewer lateral ordinance. There are retrofit requirements for low flow plumbing fixtures. There are inspections that you should get. There are disclosures that should be made. Do you know all of those things? Or would you be in a situation where the seller isn't really looking out for you or your financial best interest and something goes over your head? What if you miss something and that thing could cost you tens of thousands of dollars? And so that commission you think you're saving money on could actually cost you way, way more. And so for that reason, it is definitely worth having your own representation looking out for you. For example, on our team, we have checklists with over 180 steps to every real estate transaction. We want to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. And so we follow those checklists every time to make sure we pull the permits and learn more about the property. What's the county say about this property? What do we know is permitted and not permitted? What are the reports? What are the inspections? How's the roof? These are things you want to figure out in the process. And that's what a great team will do for you. Okay, another example of why you want a great real estate team representing you on the sale. Disclosures. There was a story I recently heard about an agent who listed and sold a property, and the seller had a pest report that they failed to disclose to the buyer. And that pest report was only for $3,500. But once the buyer had an inspection done by a company, they just called a company off the internet, and it happened to be the same company that when they came out to do the inspection, they said, "Hey, I've been to this house. I was actually here a few years ago." And then the buyer said, "Wait a minute, you've been here? The seller never told me that they had an inspection done." And so that pest report, which had only been done a few years ago and only had $3,500 worth of damages on the property to be repaired, turned into a settlement where the buyer sued the seller for $885,000. Now, they settled for a number less than that, but it was still the multiple six figures. And so that seller put themselves in an extremely precarious situation because their listing agent did not do a very good job making sure to go through the disclosures in a thorough fashion. Because part of the disclosures are, do you know of any reports, any bids, any invoices that have been provided? Not just in the last year, but like ever in your entire ownership. Anything you received from the previous owner, every single document you've received about that house, you want to disclose, because if you don't, it could come back to bite you in a big way. Okay, some other benefits to having a buyer's agent agreement signed. Now, let's say it's a super competitive market and there's a house you love. And in this new world where they're not offering a buyer's agent commission, you can be strengthening your offer if you're not asking the seller to compensate your agent through a concession. So here's the example. Okay, there's a house, it's super hot, it's got 6 offers on it. And 5 of the offers are all asking the seller to pay a commission to the buyer's agent. But you and your agent have already discussed what your agent's fee is. and the buyer has decided, okay, I will pay your fee. So now you've got 5 offers asking for the seller to pay that, but then you have the ability to pay your agent a commission. Which offer do you think is going to stand out? The one that nets the seller even more money. And so for that reason, a buyer's agent broker agreement can put your offer in a better position, in a winning position, to get it accepted, so that way you can win that home that fits your needs. Okay, so in summary, there's a lot that's going to be changing here in the real estate industry starting July 1st, 2024. However, the way things are going to be handled, it's going to be similar to the way things have always been handled. It's just going to be worded differently. So instead of having the buyer pay the commission through the purchase price, they're going to pay the commission either directly to the agent themselves, will get the seller to offer a concession for it, or it will be bundled into the loan. And then on the seller side, you get to choose how much do you want to offer that buyer's agent. And keep in mind, you can offer 0, but if you're offering nothing, it may sit longer and sell for less because there's less buyers, agents who are showing that property. So those are some of our thoughts on the new changes in the real estate industry and what you can expect. If you want to learn more about buying real estate, selling real estate, investing, or house hacking, send us a message and let's set up a consultation for free. We can meet at our office in San Luis Obispo, or we can hop on a Zoom call and chat more about your real estate goals. And please subscribe to us, follow this podcast, and share this with somebody you know who you think would benefit from it. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode. We'll see you next time.